Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, your heart pounding so hard it feels like it wants to escape your chest? That moment when reality and dreams blur together, leaving a disturbing sensation that something isn't right. Now imagine living with that feeling every day, tormented by an enigmatic figure, a woman who seems to be crying out for help, yet whose secret remains hidden in the shadows. Well, in today's episode, this is the story of Alex, a young art student who, while being pursued by a series of strange and unsettling dreams, finds himself embroiled in a mystery that transcends time and logic. In 2018, in the city of New York, Alex began to be visited in his dreams by a female figure, Evelyn Hart, a talented artist who mysteriously disappeared years ago. However, these nighttime encounters are not mere fantasies. They carry dark clues that lead him to explore the most obscure corners of Evelyn's life. What Alex discovers is a complex web of manipulation, fear, and buried secrets, where the line between the real and the supernatural becomes dangerously thin. But before we dive into this narrative of psychological horror, I am Raven Shadowmere, and you are on the Midnight Mysteries channel. If you are a fan of chilling stories and enigmas that challenge logic, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Because believe me, what you are about to uncover will keep you glued until the very last second. And don't be fooled, a shocking twist is lurking in the shadows. Ready to unravel the secrets of Evelyn Hart and discover what Alex saw on that fateful night? Prepare yourself, because this story will not let you sleep easily. From the series True Scary Stories from Reddit. I woke up with a start, my body drenched in sweat, as if I had just run a marathon. The weak morning light filtered through the curtains of my small apartment in New York, creating dancing shadows on the walls. My heart still raced at an accelerated pace, and the image of her, the female figure who appeared in my dreams, was fresh in my mind. It was always the same scene, a woman with long, unkempt hair, wearing a melancholic expression that seemed to beckon me, as if she wanted to tell me something important. But what? That was the question that tormented me. I got out of bed, still dazed, and walked over to the table where I usually made my notes. The smell of the coffee I had prepared the night before filled the room, bringing a bit of comfort. I grabbed a battered notebook and a pen and began to write frantically. She is an artist, I noted, trying to capture the essence of the figure who visited me. Evelyn Hart. The mention of the surname made my heart race even more, as it was a vague memory, something I had read somewhere but couldn't identify where. "Why do you visit me?" I murmured to myself as the words flowed onto the paper. "What do you want me to know?" Each stroke of the pen seemed to connect me more to that enigmatic presence. I was determined to decipher this silent message. The day dragged on, and even with the weight of uncertainty on my shoulders, I knew I had to go to college. The art history class awaited me, and perhaps there I would find some clue. In the classroom, the smell of paint and paper enveloped me, and the professor, a woman with gray hair and an intense gaze, began to talk about the great masters of art. But my mind was far away, wandering between dreams and reality. Then something caught my attention, a projection on the screen, a painting that seemed to vibrate with life. The image was of a woman, and as I leaned forward, my heart sank. It was her, the same figure who visited me in the dark nights. "Evelyn Hart," the professor announced, and I felt a chill run down my spine. A brilliant artist who mysteriously disappeared years ago. Her work reflected a deep sadness, and many believe her art contained secrets that were never revealed. My stomach churned. How could I be dreaming of a missing artist? What did this mean? The professor's voice became a distant buzz as I tried to process the information. I raised my hand, almost without thinking. "Professor, could you tell me more about Evelyn? What happened to her?" The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to me. The professor hesitated, but then began to speak about the tragedy surrounding Evelyn's life, about her struggles and the pressure she faced in the art scene. Each word seemed to echo in my mind, and an inexplicable connection formed between us. After class, I rushed out, my mind racing. The image of Evelyn wouldn't leave my thoughts. An urgent need to understand her story pulsed within me. This was not just a dream. There was something deeper. I walked through the bustling streets of New York, the colors and sounds of the city blending together. But all I could see was Evelyn's sad expression. I decided I needed to see her works. A nearby gallery was exhibiting some of her paintings, and I didn't think twice before heading there. Upon entering the gallery, the air felt dense, laden with history and emotion. Evelyn's works were displayed in a well-lit space, and I felt drawn to them as if they had a life of their own. Each brushstroke seemed to tell a part of her story, and I found myself standing before one particular canvas, a representation of a lake under the moonlight. The sadness emanating from that painting was almost palpable. Unexpectedly, I reached out and touched the canvas. As soon as my fingers made contact with the cold surface, a wave of warmth coursed through my body, and then everything changed. The colors blurred, and I found myself transported to a scene from another time. An exhibition in a space I didn't recognize, but felt familiar. And there she was, Evelyn, amidst a crowd of people seemingly admiring her works. But her gaze was distant, lost in dark thoughts. "Someone help me." The phrase echoed in my mind, and I realized this was not just a dream, but a call to action. What was I supposed to do? I didn't know, but one thing was certain. I needed to uncover the truth about Evelyn Hart. She had become more than just a figure in my dreams. Now she was part of me, and I was determined to discover what had truly happened to her. I woke up with my heart racing, the beats echoing in my ears like a frantic drum. The dream from the previous night still danced in my mind, the image of Evelyn like a fleeting shadow on a dark lake. I felt she was trying to tell me something, and that propelled me to dive deeper into her life. The mystery surrounding her seemed to intertwine with my own story, and I couldn't ignore the need to uncover the truth. I decided that the first step in my investigation would be to talk to people who knew Evelyn. With my notebook in hand, I left my apartment and headed to a small gallery that had been a meeting point for artists of her time. The place had a nostalgic atmosphere, and upon entering, I was greeted by the smell of fresh paint and polished wood. "Hi, are you here for the exhibition?" A soft voice interrupted me. It was a woman with gray hair and a curious look. "Actually, I'm looking for information about Evelyn Hart," I replied, trying to hide the anxiety in my voice. "Did you know her?" She hesitated, as if the memories pained her. Evelyn was an incredible artist, but her life was full of turmoil. She had a complicated relationship with an art collector. The man was possessive, always trying to control her works. "Do you know his name?" I asked, feeling my heart race. "Yes, he was called Victor. He was always around, like a shadow. Some people believe he played a role in her disappearance," the woman said with a distant look. "But I can't say for sure." Those words reverberated in my mind. The idea that someone could have harmed that artist who had become so important to me left me unsettled. I thanked the woman and left the gallery, determined to find more information about Victor. That night, I had another dream. This time, Evelyn was clearer, as if she were guiding me. The image of her, pale and sad, led me to a dark lake in the woods. "Alex," she whispered, a voice echoing through the water. "Look down." I felt a pressure in my chest, as if the world were compressing around me. I woke up with a choked scream, my heart racing 1,000 miles per hour. What did she want me to see? That vision consumed me, and I knew I had to go to the lake. The next day, I followed the path I dreamed of. The forest was dense, the rays of sunlight barely managing to penetrate the tangle of trees. The air was heavy, and with each step I took, the feeling of being watched intensified. When I finally reached the lake, the surface of the water was so calm it reflected the sky, but the atmosphere was tense, as if something was about to happen. I dipped my fingers into the water, feeling a penetrating cold rise up my wrist. It was as if I were touching the very essence of Evelyn. And then, upon closer inspection, I saw something submerged. A metallic glimmer caught my attention. With a surge of impulse, I dove in. The water was murky, but I managed to pull something up. It was a sketchbook, its pages yellowed and worn. When I opened it, I found drawings of Evelyn, each sketch a window into her soul. There were sketches of landscapes, portraits of sad faces, and notes written in delicate handwriting. But one page caught my attention. It was a drawing depicting a crime scene, a female figure with a look of panic, surrounded by shadows. My heart stopped. Evelyn was trying to tell me something, and I needed to understand. "My God, what happened to you, Evelyn?" I murmured to myself, feeling an intense connection with the artist I barely knew, but who seemed to understand every fragment of what I felt. The search for the truth was just beginning, but now I had a clue, something that could bring me closer to unraveling the mysteries surrounding her life and death. With Evelyn's sketchbook in hand, the feeling that I was sinking deeper into her story consumed me. The drawings and notes were more than mere scribbles. They were fragments of a life marked by fears and anguish, and I could not escape the idea that somehow I was destined to discover what had really happened to her. With each page I turned, I ventured further into the labyrinth of her mind. A specific sketch caught my attention, a shadowy figure with empty eyes shrouded in darkness. The title below read, "The Secret." "Why won't you tell me what's happening, Evelyn?" I whispered aloud, hoping the answer would echo back in my small apartment, but silence only stared back at me. The afternoon light filtered through the window, creating dancing shapes on the floor, but the feeling of oppression was palpable. When I returned home, the atmosphere felt different. The air was heavy, almost dense, and as I opened the door to my apartment, a wave of unease washed over me. I looked around, expecting to see Evelyn's figure watching me, but there was nothing. The light from the lamp flickered, and I wondered if my mind was truly starting to play tricks on me. "Maybe this is just stress," I murmured, trying to convince myself that reality was still intact. But as the night wore on, the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave me in peace. I sat at the dining table, the sketchbook open before me, and began to reread the notes. She was so scared, I thought, and I can't let her remain trapped in this darkness. The streetlight filtered through the window, casting shadows that seemed to come alive. I couldn't shake the chill that ran down my spine. "Evelyn?" I called, but the only response was the echo of my own voice. Yet, a part of me knew she was there somehow. The restlessness transformed into a painful certainty, as if I were teetering on the edge of an abyss, about to plunge into something deep and unknown. "What do you want from me?" I asked once more, the anguish growing inside me. The temperature in the room seemed to shift, and a cold breeze swept through the space, making me shiver. "You are not alone," I whispered, almost to myself. "I will uncover the truth." That night, I fell asleep with the sketchbook on my chest, my mind swirling with thoughts of Evelyn and what I might do to help her. Dreams came in a whirlwind, and for a moment, I didn't know if I was dreaming or awake. However, as soon as Evelyn's figure appeared, shrouded in a soft mist, I realized it was a vivid dream. "Alex," her voice sounded like a distant echo, yet filled with urgency. "You need to understand, what I hid is more than images. It's the key to my freedom." Her eyes, usually melancholic, now shone with an intensity that made me feel as if I were being pulled into her. "Evelyn, what do I need to do?" I asked, hoping she could guide me. "Where is your secret?" She pointed to a dark lake, surrounded by twisted trees and dancing shadows. "What is hidden there is the truth you seek. But be careful, Alex. Not everything that glitters is gold." Her figure began to dissipate, and I felt myself being pulled back to reality, waking with a sense of a presence around me. As I opened my eyes, the darkness of my room felt more oppressive. I sat up in bed, panting, and looked around. It was as if the house itself were alive, watching my every movement. "This is madness," I murmured to myself, but the doubt lingered. I needed to go to the lake. I needed to understand what Evelyn was trying to show me. My heart pounded like a drum in the stillness of the night. I stood up, resolute. The night was just beginning, and the search for the truth about Evelyn Hart had only just begun. I left the apartment, feeling the cold night breeze and adrenaline coursing through my veins. The lake awaited me, and I was determined to uncover what was hidden in the depths of its darkness. The light of day filtered through the broken windows of the old courthouse, creating long and distorted shadows that danced on the dust-covered walls. I had read about this place in my research, but being there, surrounded by the echoes of the past, was unsettling. My heart raced as I examined the yellow documents that lay on a debris-covered table. It was as if each page contained a fragment of Evelyn's life, an echo of her struggle and fear. Evelyn Hart was about to testify against a group of corrupt collectors, I murmured to myself, the words flowing with a terrifying clarity. What did that mean? The mystery deepened, and the connection between us grew more intense with each discovery. I needed answers, and those pages seemed to be the first step. I walked towards a broken window, where the sunlight illuminated a piece of paper that had fallen to the floor. As I crouched down to pick it up, I saw it was a sketch of Evelyn, an image of her surrounded by shadowy figures that seemed to be watching her. Who are these people? I asked aloud, but the only response was the whisper of the wind passing through the cracks. Suddenly, a cold sensation coursed down my spine, and I felt a shiver at the nape of my neck. It was as if someone were watching me. I looked around, but there was no one. This isn't a horror movie, Alex, I told myself, trying to shake off the feeling that the atmosphere was thick with invisible presences. But the idea that Evelyn was still with me, in some way, wouldn't leave my mind. As I left the courthouse, night fell quickly over the city, and I found myself lying in bed, unable to sleep. My phone vibrated incessantly, but I was lost in thought. What did Evelyn want me to know? The figure that appeared in my dreams was becoming more distressed each night, and now it seemed she was trying to guide me to something. That night, I finally fell asleep, and as always, was dragged into the world of dreams. Evelyn stood before me, her eyes deep and sad like oceans. "You need to understand, Alex," she said, her voice ethereal and distant. What I was about to reveal could be the key to everything. Look at the painting. She raised her hand, and an image floated before me, a painting that looked like a map with winding lines and a location marked in red. "Where is this?" I asked, urgency echoing in my voice in the emptiness of the dream. "In the city," she replied, her gaze carrying a weight I couldn't comprehend. "You must go." I woke up with my breath quickening, the details of the dream still vivid in my mind. The painting, the map, that wasn't just a vision, it was an invitation. I needed to follow that clue. The day was dawning as I jumped out of bed, a new purpose warming my heart. With the image of the painting etched in my mind, I grabbed my backpack and hurried out into the streets of New York. The path seemed clear, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was getting closer to something significant. The city stretched out before me, filled with secrets and untold stories. I walked through the streets, following every turn and corner my instinct indicated, until I arrived at an old building that seemed to have been forgotten by time. The windows were fogged, and the doors appeared to have been locked since the last decade. My heart raced. What was I about to discover? I pushed the door cautiously, and it creaked unpleasantly. The interior was an abandoned art gallery, filled with dusty works and heavy silence. But something was calling me, a force pulling me toward a room at the back. Upon entering, my eyes widened at what I saw. It was a secret room, filled with lost artworks and personal belongings of Evelyn. "It can't be," I whispered, unable to believe what was before me. Each piece seemed to tell a story, and I felt a deep connection to them. But what intrigued me most was a box in the corner, covered in dust, as if it had been waiting for me. What could be inside? The answers I had been seeking were finally within my reach, and Evelyn's figure seemed to float beside me, encouraging me to unravel the mystery. The atmosphere in the old art gallery was heavy, as if the air was laden with the memories of all the paintings that had once been displayed there. I walked among the shadows, my heart beating in an irregular rhythm. The box I had found was filled with yellowed letters and a worn diary, but what struck me most were Evelyn's words. Each letter revealed a piece of her soul, her hopes and fears, her disillusionments regarding the collector who surrounded her with empty promises and subtle threats. "Alex, you don't understand. He's not just a collector. He can destroy everything I am," one of the letters read. her handwriting revealing a woman in despair. I wondered if she had realized how close she was to tragedy, as if the pressure of the art world was about to crush her. As I flipped through the diary, a sensation of cold coursed down my spine. I could feel her presence, as if Evelyn were there, watching me, waiting for me to discover the truth. "You need to understand," she seemed to whisper in my mind. I wasn't the only victim. The words echoed within me, and a mix of determination and fear washed over me. Suddenly, a shadow crossed the room. I looked up and saw her, Evelyn, so real and visceral, as if she had stepped out of one of the paintings depicting her. Her eyes, once sad, now shone with an urgency I had never seen. She extended her hand, almost as if she wanted to touch me, and in that instant, a chill ran through my body. "You need to help me, Alex." Her voice was soft, but carried a weight that seemed unbearable. "What you found is only the surface. The truth goes much deeper." "I want to help, Evelyn. I need to understand what happened," I replied, anticipation growing in my chest. "But how? What more do I need to know?" She looked around, as if fearing that something or someone was listening. "The collector. He's not what he seems. He hides secrets that could cost dearly. You need to confront him. He knows more than he lets on." Her presence began to fade, and I felt a rising desperation. "Wait, don't go," I shouted, but there was nothing I could do. As the last shadow dissipated, my mind filled with unanswered questions. With the diary in one hand and the letters in the other, I made a decision. I had to confront the collector. He was still active in the art world, and his gallery was a place where I could learn more about what really happened to Evelyn. The thought of facing that man, who might be part of the mystery surrounding her death, terrified me. But the urgency to find answers was greater than my fear. The next day, I dressed in my best clothes, a black shirt and jeans, and headed to the gallery. The place exuded an air of sophistication, with contemporary works hanging on white walls. However, all the elegance couldn't hide the shadow that seemed to loom over the place. "Good afternoon. I'm Alex, an art student," I said to the receptionist, trying to appear confident. "I would like to speak with Mr. Bennett." The receptionist looked me over for a moment, assessing me. "He's in a meeting. Can I help you?" "No, I need to speak with him personally," I insisted, determination rising in my voice. He hesitated, but eventually agreed. A few minutes later, I was led to a room where the collector sat behind a desk piled with papers and artwork. He was a middle-aged man, with graying hair and a gaze that seemed to penetrate deeply into me. "Alex, isn't it? What can I do for you?" he asked, his voice smooth, but with a tone that put me on alert. "I found some things about Evelyn Hart. Things that make me think you know more than you're willing to tell," I said, trying to keep calm. He raised an eyebrow, a sardonic smile forming on his lips. "Evelyn was a talented artist, yes, but what do you really know about her?" The tension increased, and I knew I was about to enter a dangerous game. I know she was haunted, and that her life wasn't as simple as you let on. Bennett's gaze hardened. "Be careful, kid. Some truths are better left buried." I took a deep breath, my heart racing. I was just beginning to understand how much this conversation could change everything. The light in the gallery was cold and direct, reflecting off the white walls like a sharp blade. As I approached the reception, my heart pounded in my chest, almost as if I were about to enter an arena. The collector, a middle-aged man with a shrewd look and an expensive suit, was sitting behind a table, flipping through a catalogue of artworks. When he raised his eyes, the smile he wore was more of a mask than a genuine gesture. "Can I help?" he asked, his voice smooth, but with a tone that indicated there was no room for games. "I'm Alex, an art student. Recently, I came across some works by the artist Evelyn Hart," I said, trying to maintain my composure, even though the words came out hurried. "Ah, Evelyn," he said, with a look that subtly changed, as if the mention of her name was a trigger. "A tragedy, isn't it? Such talent, yet missing." "Yes, missing." The mystery surrounding her life and disappearance seemed to hang in the air, thicker than the very environment itself. "I found some information about her, and some notes that have left me intrigued." He leaned forward, his eyes shining with cautious curiosity. "What exactly did you find?" I tried to appear nonchalant, but the tension in the room was palpable. "A diary. It contains some of her reflections on her life and her relationships. Some parts are quite disturbing," I said, watching every move the collector made. A diary? An interesting piece. Do you really believe this can shed light on what happened to her?" He forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed a nervousness he couldn't hide. "I hope so," I replied, not breaking eye contact. "But what concerns me is that Evelyn was surrounded by people who exploited her. And do you happen to know any of those people?" He took a deep breath as if weighing his options. "Look, Alex, the art world is complicated. There are always interests at play, and Evelyn wasn't the only one to get hurt in that environment. I'm not the villain in this story, just a collector." "What happened to her?" "Well, it's not simple. Simplify it for me," I urged, unsure if I was being bold or just desperate. "I found her diary. It mentions you and some situations that don't seem very healthy." The atmosphere grew tense. He leaned back in his chair, his face closing off. "Do you really think I had anything to do with her disappearance?" "I admired her, Alex. Her art was unique. I'm not a monster." "Then why didn't you support her more? Why leave her in the hands of people who clearly manipulated her?" My words came out sharper than I intended. "She had her own choices, you know." His voice was firmer now, but there was a tremor he couldn't hide. "She was involved in something much bigger, a dangerous game. And when you get involved in that kind of thing, things can spiral out of control." "Are you saying you knew she was in danger and did nothing?" Indignation surged like a volcano about to erupt. I didn't have proof, and when I finally realized, it was too late. He looked down, as if the weight of his decisions was crushing him. "I didn't kill her, Alex, but I can't deny that the circumstances she was in were complicated." Silence settled between us, heavy and oppressive. I absorbed every word, every weakness, every possible fragment of the truth. When I finally managed to articulate a response, I realized it wasn't just about Evelyn. It was about me. I always thought that the figure visiting me in my dreams was the root of my fear, but maybe it's just a reflection of myself, a reminder of the insecurities I carry as an artist. The collector looked at me, confused, but with a newfound understanding. "You're starting to see, aren't you? Art is an extension of who we are, and sometimes the ghosts we face are our own, not others." The revelation hit me like a lightning bolt. The figure visiting me every night was not just Evelyn's spirit, but the manifestation of my own anxieties and doubts about the future. By accepting this truth, I began to feel a weight lifting off me. "I need to find my own path," I murmured, almost to myself. "And perhaps the only way to do that is to free Evelyn from my mind." While Alex walked the streets of New York, the weight of Evelyn Hart's mystery seemed to intensify with each step. The dreams, once merely nighttime visions, had become clear and urgent calls, a connection between Evelyn's tragic past and Alex's anguishing reality. The discovery of the diary, sketches and letters revealed secrets that had until then been buried, not only in Evelyn's story, but also in the depths of Alex's own mind. When he finally confronted the collector, what appeared to be just another piece of the puzzle transformed into a terrifying revelation. The true monster was not just a man, but the darkness that hides in the choices not made, the words not spoken, and the actions not taken. Evelyn was involved in something much larger than anyone could imagine, a web of manipulation and exploitation that turned her art into a cry for help that was never heard. But what truly shook Alex was not the imminent danger, but the realization that the figure in his dreams, this ever-present and disturbing presence, was also a reflection of his own doubts and fears as an artist. In unraveling Evelyn's secrets, he found himself confronted with his own ghosts, those he had ignored for so long. However, in the end, Alex realized that his journey was not just about freeing Evelyn from her tragedy, but also about liberating himself from the chains that bound him. By accepting that Evelyn's demons were, in a way, interconnected with his own, he managed to find new inspiration, not only to create, but to live. Art, once a manifestation of anguish and fear, now became a path to redemption and peace. And so, the central lessons of this story are clear. Fear and mystery do not only lurk in the dark corners of our minds, but also in the choices we make every day. Evelyn Hart may have disappeared, but her story lives on, a grim reminder that the deepest secrets, when unearthed, can both destroy and liberate. Now that we have reached the end of this narrative, I want to know what you think of Alex and Evelyn's story. Do you think he should have taken a different path? Leave your comment below. Your opinion could be the key to the next mystery we explore together. If you've made it this far, I have to say you're brave, or maybe a little insane, like me. Jokes aside, I'm extremely grateful that you followed this intense and twist-filled story to the end. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the Midnight Mysteries channel. By activating the notification bell, you not only help keep the channel alive, but also ensure that you'll never miss any new scary stories I bring here. And believe me, the next ones will mess with your mind even more. Now, if you really want to test your friends' nerves, how about sharing this video with them? Perhaps together you can uncover even more layers of this mystery. And who knows, they might also become fans of the channel. I can only thank you for embarking on this journey with me. Your support is what motivates me to keep bringing you these enigmatic and disturbing stories. And finally, if you're eager to find out what comes next, I suggest you keep an eye on the next video. I can't give spoilers, but I'll tell you one thing. The next story will make you question whether it's really safe to sleep at night. So, until next time, and remember, not everything that glitters is gold. Sometimes it's just a shadow waiting to be discovered.